All yours. Okay. Maybe you want it to. Yeah, okay. Okay, A. Oh. Yeah, that's pretty good. Cool, we have 10 minutes. And no one's here, so that means we have 20. Increase the view rate for volume. Not too much. Within your presence, secret the shadow of your wings. Better is one day in your courts, better is one day in your house, better is one day in your courts, thousands of better is one day in your courts, better is one day in your house, better is one day in your courts, thousands of hello, Chris. One thing I ask, and I would seek to seek your beauty find you. Replace your glory. What else must you? Better is one day in your peace. Better is one day in your house. Better is one day in your thousands elsewhere. Better is one day in your peace. Better is one day in your house. Better is one day in your thousands elsewhere. My heart, okay, thousands elsewhere. My heart is cry out for you, living God. Your spirit's walking my soul. I've tasted and seen your words again to me. I will draw near to you. I will draw near to you. Better is one day in your courts. Better is one day in your house. Better is one day in your courts. Thousands elsewhere. Better is one day in your courts. Better is one day in your house. Better is one day in your courts. Thousands elsewhere. Better is one day in your courts. Better is one day in your house. Better is one day in your courts. Thousands elsewhere. Thousands elsewhere. Yeah. Welcome. I once was lost, darkest night. You thought I knew the way. The sin that promised joy and led me to the grave. I had no hope that you were around to. And if you had not loved me first, I would refuse to stay. As I rest my head on knees, indifferent to the cost, you looked upon my helpless state and led me to the cross. And I beheld God's love displayed. You suffered in my place. You bore the wrath reserved for me. Now all I know is grace. Lily, can you turn the keyboard up a bit? Thanks. Hallelujah. All I have is grace. Hallelujah. Jesus saves my way. And Lord, I want yours, Lord. And so long, might see the strength to follow your hands. Can never come me. Father, use my ransom life in every way. choose, and let my song forever be. My only boast is you. Hallelujah. All I have is Christ. Jesus saves my life. Hallelujah. All I have is Christ. Hallelujah. Jesus saves my life.
So on that slide you set up, we added an extra line to.
Oh man, it's a long.
Where's the which slide was it? Because we added
Oh yeah, we doubled up on.
line.
Oh, Father, use my hand sometimes. What you choose.
Father.
Oh, Father, use my rest of life, so you're doubling
In
down.
any way you choose, yeah, double, yeah, thanks.
What do you choose? And then are you keeping and let my song forever?
Yeah. Be thou my vision, Lord of my heart. Not me us to me, save that thou. Thou my best thou, my day or night, all King or sweet, thy presence, I like D minor. Be thou my wisdom, and thou my true word. Ever with me, and thou with me, Lord. Thou my good Father, and thy my true Son. Dwell, be thou my passion, sword for my fights. Be thou my dignity, thou my delight. Thou my soul shuts, and thou my heart's out. Grace thou me heaven, riches I give, inheritance thou art always. Now and now, first King of heaven, my treasure thou art. King of heaven, my treasure thou art. Cool. Good job. Pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Are you awake? I feel the same. Those Saturday weddings are really bad.
Yeah, man.
At least we didn't have to drive an hour and a half.
I know.
Should we pray?
Oh, you got time.
Well, might as well pray first.
Sure, we're missing something.
Sure.
It's maybe a new sound. I don't know why. It's a sound. We're having that.
While you're singing?
No,
Or if you
with
plug in the-
plug-in.
Yeah, man, I just forgot for you. I was gonna say you can come to my house and shower, but like if you say videos. I think I just like. Or like maybe. Honestly, like at one point I was like, I didn't want to take showers, like I didn't want to.
So the video in the beginning of my thing will not work on the very
So like
first
we're
slide
sweating, like we home last night.
because
And,
we don't
like,
have the sound for it. So
people on the
don't bother.
floor were partying so loud that they were on the other end of the floor. Three doors
Yeah,
separating
see the very
myself
first
and
one,
them, and I
it
could
won't
hear
work.
everything that they were
So
saying.
we're just gonna go
Went on for about an
Just,
hour,
just
and I
skip,
just like,
just skip that slide. Start on that.
hi, I
Because
can't speak.
you can just
And
drag
then
it to the bottom,
but
then you
we
don't have to
were
worry
like
about
hearing
it.
some banging, like non-stop banging.
Yeah, anywhere there.
I really love it. So I was like, so tired. No, I was just like, I put in some earbuds and I went to sleep. I don't know what happened.
Really?
What?
Really?
What?
Earplugs?
I called the cops on my roommates last night. That's so bad. Three doors. It's three doors. Three doors should be enough. Like you can party. It's like after three doors. Like I don't anymore. Yeah, but the doors. I live in like Albert, but like the doors are also like old. You know what I mean? Like there's, it's not really heavy. On the first building off of University in Albert.
So it's actually your own roommates? Or?
No. It's like a some people down the hall. Yeah.
Did they actually get quiet?
I don't know. I slept. I just went to sleep. I was just so mad. I was like. Are you guys doing like the same routine?
I guess I should.
Do people change it up?
You got a parking space last night when you got back?
I made a sign. I'm gonna put it up. Student living is like hashtag difficult. And like people like steal your parking space. Like I bought this pylon to put in my spot, and they stole my pylon. And I was like, I had it for like 1 day, and someone stole it. I was like,
But is there anywhere to put the sign up? Like there's one guy who taped it onto the
yeah,
wall.
that's what I'm doing.
Are you inside the building?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I told her to just like keep a bag of groceries and toss it on the
Somebody like sprinkled dirt over my car yesterday. Like I came home from the grocery, and then 2 hours later, there was like dirt all over my car and on like the door and the window. It was weird. I don't know what happened.
Was it on top or just on
It
the
was like splattered. I feel like maybe degrees of sweetness or something because it was just really random.
You have kids beside you or like?
Maybe someone thinks you're parking their parking.
Oh.
Yeah.
Maybe the cops because you called the cops.
Okay. Huh? It just said, do not park. Reserved for my license plate. You will be towed. And my friend told me to put like a smiley face there. I was like,
Okay, that makes it more passive aggressive.
All right, let's go.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing all of us here today, and thank you for just letting all these people come to hear God's message, for your messages, and please bless this worship session, and please bless PP's message. We pray these things in your holy name. Amen.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Simply Church. We're just going to start off with just a song of, I guess, meditation. Feel free to sort of just sit and prepare yourself to just worship the Lord. And yeah, you don't have to stand for this one, so feel free to join whenever you're ready. Savior, I come, quiet my soul. Remember, redemption till where your blood was spilled. My ransom, everything I once held dear, counting on His loves. Lead me to the cross where your love poured out. Bring me to my knees, Father, lay me down. Rid me of myself, I belong to you. Lead me on, lead me to join us when you're able. You were tempted and tried, came flesh from my sin and death. Death thing I once accepted, counting on as loss. Bring me to the cross where your love follows. Bring me to my knees where I lay me down. Let me give myself, I belong to you. To your heart, to your heart, to your heart. Lead me to the cross where your love poured out. Bring me to my knees where I'm waking down. Let me give myself, I belong to you. Lead me Please stand for the next song. Okay. So I was just trying to go through the passages that PT is going to preach on over the next few weeks, and we're doing Philippians. So just sort of a bit of context. Philippians is a book written by the Apostle Paul. He was in prison because of his faith, and um, thing is, he was actually rejoicing in prison because I guess the gospel was being shared as a result of him being in prison. It's one of the key verses we have in this book is chapter 1, verse 21, which says, to live is Christ and to die is the gain. And so what that means is, as Christians who believe in the gospel of Jesus Christ, we live basically as God's servants, as I guess whatever Jesus tells us to do, we should do, right? So sometimes a bit hard to believe, a bit hard to take in, and so these are just the songs that I picked that came to mind when I read that passage, and so yeah, like please just sort of dwell on the lyrics, and we're just gonna sing right now, like to sort of remind ourselves that it is better in heaven than it is here, because when we die, it's actually better for us to spend eternity with God. So this next song we're just gonna sing and remind ourselves of that truth. So. How lovely is your dwelling place. What am I? My soul loves and even faints for you. For here I will satisfied within your presence. I sing in the shadow of your name. There is one in your house. There is one in your house. There is one in your voice. As this word. There is one in your voice. There is one in your house. There is one in your voice. find you and place your glory flowers. There's nothing in your heart. There's nothing in your heart. There's nothing in your heart. There's There is one day in your heart. There is one day in your house. There is one day in your heart. Thousands elsewhere. There is one day in your heart. There is one day in your house. There is one day in your heart. Thousands elsewhere, thousands elsewhere. I once was lost in darkest night, and thought I knew the way. The sin that promised joy led me to the grave. I had no hope that you would around me to. If you had not loved me first, I would refuse you to stay. But as I ran, I held my peace, indifferent to the cost. You looked upon my hands and led me to. All I have is Christ. Hallelujah. Jesus is my life. Lord, I will be yours alone. And for so long I'd see the streets to follow your hands. That will come from me. The Father lives, ransom love in any way you choose. The Father lives, ransom life in any way you choose. All I have is Christ. Hallelujah. Jesus is my love. Be thou thy vision, Lord of my heart. Be always to be safe and thou my best star, my day or waking or sleeping, my presence be thou my grace, my true word. I am thee, and thou with me, thou my great Father, and I my true Son. Thou in me dwelling, and I with my soul shouts, praise thou me heaven, O God of riches I need, your hands empty praise, how my inheritance mountains always, now and thou first King of heaven, my treasure, King of heaven, my treasure, Please be seated.
Good morning and welcome to Simply Church. We're so happy to have you here with us. If you are here for the first time, we just want to introduce ourselves to you. Simply Church is part of the Associated Gospel Churches of Canada. And if you would like to learn more about us, we do have some brochures and flyers, or you can always contact me as well. There are some refreshments in the back as well as Bibles. If you need a Bible, you're free to take it home, actually. If you're making an offering, please use an offering envelope over there and put in a email address so that we can get a tax receipt out to you. A couple of things happening today. We have Sunday school starting again. There are actually two classes. We have church history taught by Dr. John Lynn, who's over there, and Jorge, which is over there in the back as well. They're both wearing checkered today, so you can plaid and checkered, so you can distinguish them. We also will be starting a leadership worship thing. Leadership worship. Actually, on the next slide, we'll find more about it. teach them about actual practical side of music as well as some theology as well. That's taught by Terrence, who was on the keyboard this morning, and Patsy is over there. And we'll start next week. We're going to meet downstairs in the chapel. And if you don't know where the chapel is, just follow the stairs, go past the cafeteria, and out towards the back door, and that's where the chapel is. The other Sunday school class is just here on the main floor, just off the across from the bathrooms here. If you would like to come to Simply Church office, 282 Marsden Drive, just next door to the Liberal office, only for the next 6 weeks, I guess. Anyways, you can come, and we're open 9:30, 5:30, and quite often late at night as well. You can drop in. There's always food and a place to study and recreational activities, something like that, we call it that. If you would like a ride to Simply Church and you're not in the main pickup areas, please give us a shout, and we'll try and accommodate you as well. We also have grocery runs on Tuesday night, 7:30. Please remember to register so we can make sure that we have space for you. If you can't make it Tuesday, if you have a class or just busy, you can send us a list, a grocery list, and we'll be happy to pick up things for you as well. If you like to serve, Simply Church is open to all people who are interested in serving in all different capacities. There's always different places where you can exercise your spiritual gift or discover your spiritual gift. And if you'd like to serve, please contact Lily, who is on TV this morning. As well, there are lots of ideas. You can give us ideas for what you want to do as well. This week for Grad Cell, you are doing Bible study. James chapter 1. If your group leader hasn't contacted you or you haven't signed up so that they can contact you, please sign up as well. That's Grad Cell, simply Grad Cell 2019. Okay? And the worship one, please also sign up as well so we can make sure we got enough instruments and things as well. We have some prayer items for this week as well, and worship next week. Just remember. Let's pray, shall we? Father, we just give you thanks as we come before you in celebration of who you are and what you have done for us, as we commemorate, as we offer ourselves this morning to you as broken vessels, to be mended, to be filled, and to bring glory into this world. For we offer ourselves this morning humbly at your feet. We especially pray for those who are suffering illnesses. We remember especially Professor Patrick Franklin as he continues to recover in the hospital. We pray that your spirit may continue to lift him up in spite of his agonies. And we pray that your spirit may also give strength to his family, his wife especially, during this time of difficulty. We pray for those who are under persecution in various parts of the world, especially for Nancy. We ask that your spirit continue to work in mighty ways. That the miraculousness of your power be demonstrated through the lives of your faithful and loyal disciples. As we come to you in the Word of God, we pray that we may be found faithful as well. And ask your Spirit to open our hearts and minds up, that we may perceive your Spirit calling us with that still small voice, to open our hearts, to change our minds, that we may be in tune with you, to separate the bone from the marrow, that we may be transformed by your ways. So we offer ourselves to you this morning as a sign of adoration and praise, a sign of sacrifice, for you are the true God, and it is in you that we trust this morning. And it's upon the mighty, powerful name of Jesus Christ we pray. Amen. I don't know if you ever asked yourself that question, if only. If only. What I mean is that, you've reached some crisis point in your life and you're looking for answers, looking for a solution, looking for a way out, looking for a release. And you think to yourself, if only, if only. I think one of those circumstances came to me when I was a young person, and I had horrible commuting experiences growing up. We picked a place to live in Montreal that had bus service. It was very important that my parents thought that we should take a bus to school. And because of the railroad track that separated us from the direct way of getting to the school, they were forced to give us a school bus that would pick us up. It was one of those safety things that happened. And so I always had a school bus drive me to school until about grade 4. And then due to cutbacks and stuff, they began to put us onto public buses to go to school. So you got a bus pass, and it was free, and you can use it 24/7, all days of the week. There's no limitations, and you began to take the bus to school. And that's when I began to ask myself, what if? Because in Montreal, what would normally take a couple of minutes for me to get to school began to become this arduous route, because I had to get around the railroad tracks. And that meant that I had to take 3 buses to school. Now, 3 buses in Montreal implies that you have 2 transfer points, which means you have to wait outside in the cold, and hoping that your bus comes soon. And what would normally take about 7-minute car ride would take about 20 to 30 minutes bus ride, if the buses were on time. And of course, that became more exaggerated when I started going to college and then out to university as well. What would accomplish an under 20-minute car ride, it became an arduous hour to hour and a half of public transit. Now, Montreal is kind of like the Siberia of Canada, I think, in some ways. And the reality is, taking those buses were just really a pain in the butt. If you complain about Waterloo public transit being bad, you haven't experienced anything until you go to Montreal. And quite often I would stand in the freezing cold at the bus stop, watching all these cars pass me by. And the first thing that would come to my mind is, what if? What if I had a car? And think about the ability to save time. That was one of the good things. And of course, all the things that you can do with the free time that you save, and the warmth of the car interior protecting you from the cold. Not to mention, the terrible BO that happens when you're sitting in a crammed, like sardine environment of a bus or a metro. And I think some of you understand clearly what I'm talking about. If you grew up in Toronto and had to take the TTC, especially in hot, humid weather, the BO even gets worse. I believe this was because of this cruel Canadian upbringing in Montreal for over 20 years. And the comparison to a very efficient transit system from the old country, right? From where I come from, transit is a very efficient way of actually getting around. And that pretty much brought my mind to the point where I am now conditioned to never be without a car. Never be without many cars, as some of you have noticed as well. I am obsessed, totally obsessed with owning vehicles. After I was able to buy my first car, I had swore to myself, with all those times I stood out in the cold, that when I got to the point where I can buy a car, I will buy a car, and I will never be without a car. If you know me, if you see that I travel to any place in the world, any airport, any city in the world, the first thing I do is go to the car rental and pick up a car. The only place where I don't pick up a car is actually in Hong Kong. Because in Hong Kong, the efficiency of the public transit, the mass transit, is so much better than driving. So that's the only place I don't rent a car. But anywhere else in the world, I travel, I always get off the plane, go and get a car. If only. I'm sure you have asked that question in your minds many, many times. When you enter into some void of life, when you enter into some trial, and you ask that question, if only. And here's some of the common ones I would have said. If only I had more money. Because if I had money, then I would be able to alleviate some of the stress in my life. If only I had more money, I can do this. If only I had more money, I don't have to worry about this. And there's all sorts of things associated with that. Of course, you can also have, if only I had more time. Most of you experience that probably by about now, actually. But midterm comes around for students, final exams, final thesis and paper, whatever it might be, you will find the time when you wish, if only I had more time. It might have been when you're in a hospital bed facing stage 4 cancer. It might be whatever situation. And you wish that you had a little bit more time. Perhaps even to turn back time. If only I could. go back and redo the mistakes in my life. For others, it might be a relationship. If only I had a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a housemate even. Perhaps just a cat would be nice. Someone who loves me, who will take away some of this loneliness in my life. If only I had those relationships that fill the voids. And for others, it might be an issue of power. If only I had power. If only I was in command, I would do things differently. And sometimes, you ever have a staff meeting and you're on the low end of the totem pole and, your manager and boss just doesn't listen to anything. Yeah, you get those experiences before, there's office politics, all sorts of things. If only I had the power to change things. And perhaps in a university environment, and as you grow older, you perhaps wish that you knew more. If only I had known. If only I had known. If I had the knowledge, the foreknowledge, then I would not make these mistakes in life. When people are needy, when they are in want of satisfaction, when something is out of control, when their life is missing joy, I would say that people tend to divide their quest for knowledge, information, satisfaction, whatever it might be, remedy. I would divide it into two stages. I would say one, people either look at it culturally or people look at it religiously. What I mean by that is say that when we look at culture, you'll find that culture has for us several compartments in which they try to help us alleviate our pain, our needs, our desires. We often have processes where they give you, if you want to be like this, then there are 7 stages you can apply, or so many steps you can take. Those idiots guidebooks that you find in the library, in the bookstores. If you do this, you will succeed. For others, of course, there are possessions. I would believe in possessions that if you have this, your life will be like this. It's like the Axe shampoo. You have Axe shampoo, and then suddenly you are a hot stud on the beachfront. It might be not something as big as that. For me, it was after cancer. I was really itchy all over the place with the chemo, and so somebody recommended I should get better underwear. It's one of those things where if you believe that you had this possession, you can fix this problem. And I'm like that. I'm one of the worst persons to do that because I believe in having every tool in the world. Because if I have the right tool, then I can fix whatever problems I have. For other people, it might be not a physical wrench or screwdriver. It might be a kitchen tool. If you add an Instant Pot, you can make better meals more quickly. And that's what they sell you on, right? If you have this possession, you can do this and satisfy your life. It could be technology. Somebody used my phone last night to take a picture. We were at a wedding and gave them my phone to take a picture. And the first thing they said was, "This is so slow." Like, oh my goodness, it's not that slow. It's only 3 years old. But if I had a faster phone, I could take more pictures faster. I just think that they didn't have a human flesh at the finger where they're touching. It was actually an artificial limb and it wasn't in the right context. The pursuit of solutions in life often takes us to processes that don't work. You try these processes, but it really doesn't fit your lifestyle or it's not very successful. You pursue new possessions and you find that those possessions are lacking. They just don't do what you want it to do. For other people, actually, it might be you need to start over. You're looking for a new place. And you just got to get out of here and go somewhere else. It's like a lot of people who were at the wedding yesterday. Some of them were local, and one of the things I discovered about local kids growing up in a small town is the last place they want to go to university is in the small town. The first thing they want to do is apply for universities as far away as possible. Some people believe that it might not be as ridiculous as going across country or just different places all over the world, but rather just go to a bar. And maybe the bar will help you alleviate sleep. You go over to a bar, you meet more miserable people who are in the same boat as you, who went to the bar to alleviate their problems. But, I was talking to some people last night, and they were willing to leave the hectic lifestyle of Toronto and come to Waterloo. Waterloo is God's country, after all. You know that. But the Mennonites came here first, so we know it's God's country. It's very tranquil here. It's peaceful. There's no drive-by shootings. Like, that's all you hear about in Toronto all the time now. Again, there's always shooting somewhere, all the way up now to Mississauga, Peel region. Or perhaps you just don't find life satisfying enough and you need to go to Vegas, right? Because what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. There's fortune to be made, fast car, fast woman. That's what you want. You want more. All this is to say that culture, I think, is very lacking in the ability to answer life's problems and the pursuit of happiness. And you may try different processes. You may have different possessions and multiple possessions. That you may go to different places. You may even laugh with different people. Different relationships. But in the end, it's probably not going to make you all that happy. It's not going to fill the void in your life, that you will still be found lacking. The author of Ecclesiastes puts it in this words. He says, meaningless, meaningless. Everything is meaningless. As he pursued all the pleasures of life, all the avenues, all the relationships, he found that in the end, that it was all meaningless. And so what do people do when they look at culture and find that culture is lacking? They then pursue happiness and joy and satisfaction in another means, and they move to religion. Now, religion begins with, I would say, at one end of it, like pop psychology, kind of the stuff that has a little bit of God overlay. I would say like somebody like Oprah. It's kind of that pop culture overlay with a bit of religion. It's popular. It's a means of which you find your way to happiness, your inner self, and there's a lot of magazines out there that talk about this stuff. They talk about general health and things like that. Talk about natural paths and talk about health foods and things like this. And people pursue these routes and they build their inner being. But the problem with this is that this type of spirituality, this pop culture spirituality, religion, has nothing to do with God. It's usually just you, and you build your God around you. If there is a God, he exists for you to tell him what to do. You figure out what you like, and you tell God, this is my life, and how will you fit to make my life complete? And so God is nothing more than your errand boy, your lackey, somebody who's a slave to your whims. And spiritually minded people tend to be like that. And you find, as you talk to this pop culture spirituality type of crowd, that these people tend to be about me. That ultimately all the end goals and everything is about satisfying who I am, what I want to be. It's not about God, it's about what I want. It's not about what God wants, it's about what I can tell God to do for me. And of course, some of us perhaps have already tried this type of vague spirituality and found it lacking because it's so random. It has no absolutes and it can fly left and right all over the place. And often it doesn't go well. And so perhaps you are here this morning at Simply Church because you are seeking what Simply Church talks about, which talks about Christianity. And so you're trying on this very particular boxed-in form of religion, this something called Christianity. And what I find disconcerting about this whole wave of Christianity, especially in today's world, is that there is a kind of sentiment that joy can be found in Christianity in the same manner that pop culture offers it. That is to say that Christianity offers you also a way of getting healthy, of becoming prosperous, of having great relationships, to be happy. That equation of health and wealth is something known as the prosperity gospel. Now, in this, what we're really saying is that as Christians, we have nothing really to offer that is different than what the world offers through culture. That it is not different than any other non-Christian groups in the world, that we are not any different than people in religion. I don't know if you heard this week, there's a guy by the name of Benny Hinn. How many of you have heard of him? Yeah, some of you. He is one of the top prosperity gospel advocates. And not only that, he does miracles and performs miracles and healings. He goes all over the world. This week, he actually renounced what he was preaching about. It was very interesting. He actually said, I'm correcting my own theology, and you need to know it. This is in a podcast that he's doing. The blessings of God are not for sale. They're not for sale. The blessings of God are not novel for him. That's like renouncing everything he's been talking about for the last 30 years of his life. The blessings of God are not for sale. The miracles are not for sale. The prosperity is not for sale. Benny Hinn was part of a movement of pastors like Joel Osteen. Everybody thought of Joel Osteen? Free flow dollar, it's what a last name dollar for prosperity. And Paula White, you are in the women's side. But maybe it's prosperity that you're looking at. I mean, a lot of people have tried the prosperity route and realized that possessions, materialism, just does not satisfy. But really, you are into really developing relationships. One televangelist says, God wants you to have the greatest relationships. And you need to be a total victor in your relationships, a winner. All your relationships need to be good and will be good if you are a disciple, a follower of Jesus Christ. Well, here's what I know about Jesus Christ. I know when it comes to Jesus Christ, in terms of relationship, his family disowned him. His family rejected him. His friends abandoned him. Judas betrayed him. The crowds actually screamed at him when they first accepted him as coming into the gates of Jerusalem. Triumphal entry as a king, the new chosen king, only to turn on him a few days later, yelling, "Crucify him, crucify him." I don't mean to understate or overstate my case, but certainly it appears as Jesus Christ had some relational issues in his life. But not only that, if it's not relationships, perhaps it's pain that you're trying to overcome. Physical pain. Did Jesus suffer physical pain? Well, certainly. Some of you have some chronic pain, some headaches. Some of us are, cancer victims and have the side effects of cancer. But certainly Jesus Christ understood pain. He was beaten. His beard was plucked. A crown of thorns was put on his head. He was scourged, beaten, whipped, right to the point of death. And then he was crucified. He understood pain. And just being a follower of Jesus Christ does not relieve you of that physical pain. We have talked about culture using power to satisfy us, being in control and victorious and not a victim. God does not want you to be a victim, but a victor, as this televangelist said. Was Jesus Christ ever victimized? You read through the Gospels and you realize that he was victimized. False accusations, false witness, a false trial, false condemnation, and ultimately a false execution. Some of us here may have been physically abused or abandoned, molested even, possibly raped, neglected, despised, betrayed. Some of us have been in deep despair. If you really know God and you really trust God, then you shouldn't be in despair. It makes no sense that you should be in despair. At least that's what people say. What about Christ? Do you remember on the night that he was betrayed, as he knelt in the Garden of Gethsemane? He was so stressed out he couldn't sleep. He was so anxious. His level of stress was so high he literally sweated drops of blood. Unbelievable anxiety in his life. So here's my point in all this. The point is, though you may have a relationship with Jesus Christ, if you claim yourself as a Christian, that relationship is not always roses. Not roses and lollipops all the time. There are days that will be very, very hard. Very, very difficult, very, very painful, where you will doubt that is this all worth it? And you'll ask the question, what if? What if? And ultimately, you may not even think about the microscopic what if, but you think about the macroscopic one. And you think about what if we can go back to the Garden of Eden. We go back to Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, where it was perfect. Where it says that God made everything, and everything was good. And we yearn for that time. And if we only had, what if we had the power to turn back time and go back to Genesis 1 and 2? And now we can stop Adam and Eve and say, look, don't do it. That fruit from the tree of knowledge, good and evil, don't do it. Eve, don't listen to the serpent. Satan is deceiving you. He's a liar. What if sin didn't happen? Or at least, what if we can pretend that sin did not happen? If sin did not happen, then there will be no death. If sin did not happen, there will be no conflict, no chaos, no injustice, no war, no famine. There will be no pestilence, no plague, no hardship, no loss, no suffering, no mourning. There will be no weeping, no crying. What if we told everyone it's the Garden of Eden all over again? God made everything good. Just do it, in like the words of Nike. Just go for it. Just do it. And we neglect the sin problem. Well, that's where we are today. In the world of pluralism, we just basically told people, you have a free reign. Just do it. We are in the Garden of Eden again. What is right and wrong has no more meaning or significance. God made everything, and everything is good. So enjoy whatever you like. And so we've moved into a world where the only absolute, the only judge of what is right and what is wrong, what is enjoyable, what is painful, is in the individual. And so people indulge in what they believe in is right, and what they believe that they love. What we're really doing is setting up people for a constant failure. So that when they're hurting and they have looked into culture, they looked into themselves and they have no solution. We found money, power, possessions, relationship, nothing could solve their pain. And they ask, God, where are you? When they're suffering, they ask, where are you, God? When they can't pay their bills, when they can't make their monthly mortgage, when they can't put food on the table, they ask the question, where are you? And when they're victimized, molested, abused, they ask God, where are you? The result is, as we know, for us who live on this earth, that our eyes are open and that there are hurting people everywhere. There are suffering people everywhere. There are people dying and struggling and discouraged. And they have nothing but just to pull Bible verses out of context. What they need is more than pithy bracelets with Bible truisms. They need more than just a good attitude. They need more than just what the world has to offer. It's really sad that the number one prescription drug in America, you know what it is? Medical doctor. Well, close, yeah. It's an antidepressant. The number one drug prescribed in North America. 48% of the drugs prescribed are antidepressants. That tells you that somewhere along the line, the pursuit of happiness, the satisfaction of joy, the need to relieve ourselves of our ailments is not going very well. Despite all the cultural and religious efforts to solve the problems of this world, nothing is giving us solutions. To make us truly happy, things are just not working. My point to you, Simply Church, is simply this: that we live in a world that exists for the cause of relieving life's pains, of relieving life's suffering. An ultimate goal would be, probably in the words of the Constitution of the United States, that it is for the pursuit of life, liberty, and what? Happiness. That is our right as a citizen of this earth, written in a constitution, that we pursue happiness. obviously it is not going very well. Philippians is a book about joy, about finding answers, about spiritual sufficiency, about the hope we have. But before we actually even get to the book, Terrence asked me what I'm speaking on. And I said, oh, yeah, Philippians 1. And then a couple of days later, he goes, the whole chapter? I said, no, Philippians 1, like the first verse. And I don't even think I'll get through it. I actually stayed up all night because after I went to the wedding yesterday, I had some thoughts in mind. And I had 15 pages and I'm truncated down to 10. And I'm not going to get through it. Based on one verse. So anyways, but somebody said that I do very good contextualization so you understand what's going on. But here's what we really need to look at this morning. Before we understand what Paul is talking about in Philippians, and a couple of weeks ago I talked about that I want to put us on a journey that puts us on an appetite, that we want to have a spiritual appetite, that we really do want to feel hungry for God, that we want to fill our hunger, satisfy our hunger with the right source. We talked about John 4, that the woman at the well was looking for the living water. Because the water that she was getting every day was not sufficient. She was trying to find a relationship with all the men that she had, in her livelihood, all sorts of stuff, but she never found it. But Jesus Christ offered her the living water that she will never have to go to this well again. She will never have to draw from the well. It will be sustaining her forever, satisfying her every need. And that's what Philippians really talks about. That in the life struggles that we have, there are answers to all our spiritual needs. The question is, where is our hunger? And how are we filling that hunger? How are we satisfying it? And so what we want to talk about in Philippians is understanding why we cannot find happiness. I think there's three primary causes to why we cannot find answers in life. Why people are searching so hard but they can't find answers. Why they want to live a life of joy and happiness and satisfaction. Some of us really lower the bar. Because we have a really high bar and then we begin to lower it because we say, we want to get to that point. But if I lower the bar, maybe I'll be happy. And you keep on lowering the bar. I mentioned we were at this wedding yesterday, and it was great because this is one of the first weddings I haven't had to officiate this year. Generally, I am on this side of the picture, and I get to see the bride and groom the whole time. But yesterday, I actually got to sit down and saw the back of everybody's head, and it was a very different experience. There was no stress on me, and actually, the bride, she was one of the first ones to get baptized here at Sept Church. That's a long time ago. I was discussing with one of the guests who attended Simply Church in the founding years that looking at marriage and weddings, and this particular person wasn't married yet, and I had read a series of books recently that talked about that marriage is not the epitome of one's existence, of one's social existence, but there's a kind of a underlying current that makes you believe helpfully that you should be married. If you're not married, then there's something lacking from you. There's something wrong with you. Ever had that conversation or heard that conversation before? You hit 25, you graduate from university, you go back home and mom says like, well, don't you have a boyfriend? Don't you have a girlfriend? Like, what's wrong with you? And you meet your relatives, you go overseas, I go back, I remember going back overseas, and then the first thing you always ask is, do you have a girlfriend? It's like, no. Oh, what's wrong? You're smart. You got all this things. Is there something wrong with you? There's something said about that we believe in epitomizing that that if we get married, we hit the epitome of life satisfaction in terms of relationship. And there is something like that in our culture. We believe that when I meet that right person, I'll fall in love, I'll get married, I'll have children, all sorts of those things that come with it. It may not be relationships. Sometimes in life, we have to just think, if I have things, I'll be happy. If I finish college, if I make money and then I can buy a house and a nice car, I can move up the corporate ladder with that job. I'll get my promotion, and with promotion comes money. And with money and promotion comes power. But what if that never happens? Or even as you continue this process, you find that suddenly it's never the source of your joy. There's a great book, if you ever get a chance to read it, Peter Kreeft wrote a book called The Best Things in Life. The contemporary Socrates look at power, pleasure, truth, and the good life. We have a copy at the church office. I was trying to look for it and bring it today, but I can't find it. So somebody probably borrowed it and kept it. But anyways, you can probably find it. Really a good book to read. I'll let you in on a little secret. We're not all going to get married. We're not all going to make babies. We're not going to be millionaires. We'll never be without physical pain or have perfect relationships. There is no Princess Bride story. We all don't live happily ever after. Please sign the petition not to remake Princess Bride. You heard about that, right? Okay. Look it up. What if you never meet that perfect mate? What if you don't have those children, if you don't have those friends, if you don't finish that degree, if you don't get those possessions, the car, the house? What if you don't find that person? What if you don't have the health that you hope for or the wealth that you struggled to obtain? Will you be grieving, despairing, mourning because your hope was out there, but it was never built? I think this pursuit of happiness isn't working in our world today because there's a disconnect between two things. There is desire and there is contentment in one's life. Desire is a good thing. Actually, God talks about desire is good, that you should have desires in life. You should want to fall in love. You should want to pay your bills and make ends meet. You want to be healthy. You want to live a fruitful life. You want to have desires. And those desires are good because the end of those desires are very good. But the flip side of this is when you desire something and when you get to the point where you're fulfilling those desires, there is the issue of contentment. And that you're discontent with fulfilling those desires. That you're not happy with what you have, with the person that you've met, with the perfect mate that you said that God has provided for you. And after 3 or 4 years, you find that that's not the case. That's why Paul says it this way: godliness with contentment is great gain. Godliness with contentment is great gain. We are here to have desire, and we are supposed to be content. But if we have desire without contentment, we have discontentment. And when we have discontentment, we're basically constantly setting ourselves up for despair. We're setting ourselves up for disappointment, for discouragement. We feel that we have failed in life, or someone has failed us. I think the second thing is that when we pursue happiness and it's failing, it's because the things themselves actually are failing. We get that person, we get the things, the possessions that bring us great joy. But after a while, they're not quite what we expected. Now, you don't have to raise your hands. I know that some of you here have been married for many years, and some of you are not, and some of you are thinking about being married. And some of you are saying to yourself, I'll be happy when I get married. And then when you get married, you suddenly realize, I'm not so happy. I'm a sinner, I'm not perfect, and they're a sinner too. And there's a lot more conflict than I was hoping for. You know, we went through premarital and we understood there's going to be some issues. And they're thinking exactly the same thing. You know, they're hoping that we as a sinner will become better, and we're hoping they as a sinner is going to be better. And I was hoping that they would do everything that I intended them to do and behave and act like, but they weren't quite there. Surprisingly enough, they're saying the exact same thing about you at the same time. That the person I married was not going in the direction I intended that it should be. And then they think, well, maybe we shouldn't have some children in our lives. And the children will bring us joy and happiness and bring us together. But, you know, the child is like the spawn of Satan. They never listen, they're always screaming, they never sleep. And not only that, suddenly you realize, you got to put them through university and diapers to university, and that's a lot of money. Money that's coming out of my possessions that are making me happy. And so out goes your, Muslim Yada that you were using to date girls with, and in comes the minivan. Maybe it isn't the person. Maybe it's the profession, the job that you thought would be satisfying. It's never that satisfying. Not only that, it consumes your life, your whole existence. You're now working 60 hours a week, 80 hours a week. Or even the house that you get, it's never the same. The house is always in the perfect condition when you sell it. Because you're always trying to make the house exactly what you want it to be, and by the time you make it what you want it to be, that's when you sell the house. It always happens. The car is not exactly what you want, and even if it's a perfect car, you know what's going to happen. You park at Pacific Mall and someone's going to ding it. That's life on this fallen earth. That's life itself. It's sin that's come into human history. It's work that is cursed. This is what God calls in Genesis 3, that we will toil. We will toil, and we will not get anywhere. The truth is, having a person or thing and the ability to enjoy that person or thing are two totally separate things. Desire, contentment. There's a third reason I think about. If you like philosophy, you know a guy named Pascal. He was a French mathematician, 17th century. And he basically says that we tend to be miserable. We tend to be miserable, that we don't like to think about being miserable, but in order not to think about being miserable, what we do is we create diversions in our lives. We distract ourselves. We think about something else. We do something else to take our mind off of misery. Now, how many of you have done that before? I'm sure you've done that. It's called procrastination in modern day. You know what you're supposed to do, but what you're going to do is actually terribly miserable, labor intensive, and you're not going to pass anything. So you want to do anything else but that. Today I think, basically the things that take our minds off of, misery would be like surfing the internet, YouTube, TV, drinking, smoking, whatever it might be, messing around, dating, going to clubs, whatever it is to divert ourselves from really realizing that we are in misery. Søren Kierkegaard said, if I could prescribe one remedy for the human condition, Søren Kierkegaard, anybody? If I could prescribe one remedy for the human condition, I would assign every human being. To have a time out. That's what he's basically. To sit alone in silence in their room so they can meditate on their misery. Wow. All right, we go to prison. If I could prescribe one remedy for the human condition, I would assign every human being to sit alone in silence in their room so they can meditate on their misery. Yeah. And I think we do that a lot, right? Rather than think about what's making us unhappy, we'd rather distract ourselves and do something else. We keep on working for us, workaholics. We keep on playing, sleeping, or doing anything else so that we don't have to think about it. I have a motion sensor as well as a daylight sensitive light outside my door, out my house. And we put in one that has an LED bulb in it, which is supposed to last 500 million years, according to the box. It's been only about 2 years. And it's starting to, flicker, and then soon it won't come on. And sometimes you go and it's actually on, But it's just Chris and I, and just generally for the two of us, we don't have a problem because we basically have all the steps memorized. We can walk it in the dark, blindfolded, and we know where to put the key and which key to stick in what hole. But now we have someone living with us. And they're not familiar, and there is a step, and of course this becomes really dangerous as daylight wanes. We begin to come into autumn, by the way. This is the last weekend for summer. And so because I let it lapse for I don't know how many months, I had forced myself. Yesterday with Juanita, I actually had to change the light. Because the last thing I wanted is someone tripping on my step. But I kept on looking at this thing all the time, thinking, oh, I gotta change this light. I'll do it another day. And we do that all the time, right? We just think about the things that make us miserable and we just procrastinate on them. So let's take a moment and say this. It's okay to be discouraged. It's okay to take a look at that hard place in your life. The things that you don't want to see in the mirror when you look at a mirror. The place where you're wondering where your hope, your joy in the future is, and it's not there. It's waning. And perhaps the pursuit of happiness and joy in your life has not been really where you're going for. It's not, you're not at that point. And culture and religion has not given you a hopeful answer. That's where we are in Philippians. That's the context in which we come to Philippians. These people are in a world that has not satisfied them. And these are new believers, new converts that have moved from a different religion into this new religion called Christianity. And they're seeking answers to life's problems. They're seeking answers to ultimate satisfaction, to happiness and joy. And so we come to the book of Philippians, it's a great theme. It is a book about satisfying all the spiritual depressions that you have, all the physical depressions that you have, the pain that you have in your life. And Paul talks about how God can meet those needs. Paul's going to give us options to culture and give us options to religion. And the only verse we're looking at this morning is actually this one verse, which is Paul to Timothy, who is his right-hand man, and to all the saints in Philippi, Jesus Christ, whom we are now slaves and servants. And those words are so, so important. But I'm going to make a choice and cut it here, because we have hit 11:50. So we have no answer until next week about how God is going to satisfy you. But I know how we can be satisfied this morning. I'm going to ask the worship team to play the set for us, if we have time to play the set. Read Philippians. It's been over 30 years. 30 years since I looked at Philippians as a preaching sermon series. In seminary, we had to pick a book that we had to preach through, and this was the one I picked. So in many ways, it's very dear to my heart, and I hope that it will be to you as well. It is a key to the success of life. It's really, really deep in its understanding and meaning. So I encourage you to read Philippians for the next several weeks, months that we'll be studying through it. And think about your own life. Sit in a corner. Be miserable. Be silent in your misery. And ask, how will I be satisfied? And then begin to read Philippians. We're going to get satisfied by singing through our worship set with Terrace this morning. Enjoy.
Let's all stand. Savior, I come my soul. Redemption time when your blood was spilled for the ransom. Everything I was tempted, counted all as loss. Lead me to the cross where your love poured out. Bring me to my knees, Lord, and lay me down. Wake me up, my son, I belong to you. Lead me to the cross. You were as I tempted and tried. You the word became flesh, for my sin and death. Now you raise up. Everything I was empty, counted lead me to the cross where your love poured out. Bring me to my knees, Lord, lay me down. Give me of myself, I belong to you. To your to the cross where your love poured out. Bring me to my knees, Lord, lay me down. Bring me my soul, I belong lovely is your dwelling place, O Lord Almighty. My soul longs and even faints for you. Here my heart is satisfied within your presence. I seek the shadow of your wings. Better is one day in your face, better is one day in your house, better is one day in your face, thousands elsewhere. Better is one day in your face, better is one day in your house, better is one day in your face, thousands elsewhere. Thousands elsewhere. Jesus says my life, hallelujah. All I have is Christ, hallelujah. Jesus says my life. Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart, not me all else to be safe that thou art. Thou my past thought, my day or my night, making or sleeping, thy presence be thou my rest, my true word. Thou my great God, thy my true Son. Thou in these valleys, and be thou my path, shed sword for the fight.
Let us pray, shall we? Now the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you and your spirit. And my God will supply every need of yours, according to his riches and glory in Christ Jesus, to our God and Father, be glory now and forevermore. Amen. After a time of meditation, we're dismissed.